Why are we so willing to live and die by other people's opinions? I've got some very strong opinions and some hard-to-hear truths for you coming up in today's episode of the Steve Freeman Podcast.
You're listening to the Steve Freeman Podcast, the real, raw truth about the pursuit of success in music, business, and life. Here's your host, hit songwriter, multi-platinum selling producer, and serial entrepreneur, Steve Freeman.
Hey, boys and girls, welcome back to the Steve Freeman Podcast. So good to have you here. While you're here, don't forget, rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcast or iTunes, be sure to leave us those 5 stars and leave a written review. You can find everything you need to know about me at thestevefreeman.com, and be sure to follow me across social media at the Steve Freeman. The podcast brought to you by artistdevelopmentacademy.com. Real-world solutions for real-world problems in the music business to help you grow your career and take it to the next level with monthly online courses, a very supportive online community that is private to members only, all kinds of cool stuff to help you take your career to the next level. Find out more, everything you need to know at artistdevelopmentacademy.com. All right, guys, today we are going to be talking about opinions. And I recently got an email from someone, and I get one of these emails, I don't know, maybe once a month, once every, couple of months or so. And basically, this email is telling me, look, I'm a songwriter, or it's always an artist or a songwriter. And, I've been in town for a little while. I've pitched my songs around. Everybody tells me that, my songs aren't current enough, or they sound too much like this or too much like that, or I'm an artist and I don't sound or look like this artist or this artist, and I just don't fit the bill as to what they're currently looking for. Okay, I don't know how long today's episode's going to be, because this topic gets me very riled up. It gets me very angry, and it gets me upset. Because on one hand, I understand how all of us as creatives, unfortunately, we tend to thrive and often feed off of other people's opinions of not only our work, but because our work, our creations, our songs, they are a reflection of us directly. So, we take everything very personal. We've talked about this many times, but we take things very personal. When somebody says, I don't like that song, we're not taking up the song's defense. We take it very personally. And to us, you're telling us that you don't like us. Well, I've said many times that in order to be successful in this business, and really the truth behind that is, in order to be able to stay in this business long enough to be successful, you have to grow a thick skin. It is the number one rule. And if you are incapable of growing a thick skin, then this is not the business for you, because you are going to hear no 100,000 times more than you ever hear yes. The purpose of this particular podcast episode that I want to go into is the reasons that you hear no. Okay. And I want to talk about this. I'm going to give you some examples. The powers that be in this town, at the record labels and the publishing companies, don't know a fucking thing about what they're talking about. None of them. Now, I'm going to let that sink in for just a second. How do I know that? Because if A&R reps at labels and creative directors and people responsible for signing songwriters at the various publishing companies, if they were a quarterback for an NFL football team, they'd never get signed. And they'd never get in the game. Why? Because they throw 150 interceptions for every one completion. If they were in baseball, they would have the worst batting average or the worst ERA in the history of the sport. Why? Because they get it wrong 1,000 times for every time they get it right. But yet we have so many young songwriters and even experienced songwriters. Guys, I see songwriters that I'm friends with on Facebook still bitch, moaning, and complaining about not being able to get cuts and their songs not getting heard and the feedback that they're getting on their songs. So this isn't just a new songwriter, new artist thing. You would think that these people had been in the business long enough to realize and see the different things that have happened over the years. They have gotten it wrong. They get it wrong all the time. They get it wrong 1,000 times for every time they get it right. Why? Every artist that you hear on the radio right now was passed on by another record label. They were probably passed on by several record labels. The infamous story that passes around Nashville all the time is Garth Brooks was turned down by every record label in Nashville more than one time. More than once. And the same could be said for any artist that you want to name. Part of that reason is because of job security. There is safety for these people in saying no. If they sign somebody and it doesn't work out, they're in jeopardy of losing their job. So they say no all the time. No, the song's not good enough. No, you, the artist, isn't good enough. Your music isn't good enough. They don't know. The person that you're giving all of this credit to, that you are counting on being your gateway to the next level, is really just a gatekeeper that doesn't know their head from a hole in the ground. Most of the time, in most cases, the people that can make decisions, that do know what they're talking about, they have 4 or 5 interns that just graduated fucking Belmont. They're 21, 22, 23-year-olds that have never lived life, that have had mommy and daddy's silver spoon shoved up their ass their entire life. And because they live in Nashville and they interned over here, they think they know what the hell they're talking about, and they don't. This has been proven time and time and time again, that they are wrong at every turn. So I know that it's hard when you hear negative feedback. I understand that. I get negative feedback all the time. You guys ought to look at the comment section on the podcast. Jesus fucking Christ. But I don't care. Do I want you guys to like what I do? I absolutely do. Do I want people to like the songs that I write? I absolutely do. Do I want people to love the records and buy the records that I produce for other artists? I certainly do. But I want that for the artist. I honestly, I don't give a shit. I know that when I sit down to write a song with somebody or I go in the studio to produce a record, I am giving 110% of what I have at that moment into that project. What the opinion is of somebody out there that has no influence on the process whatsoever, what they think about what I do, I could give 2 shits. I don't care. Because you are not going to buy that record anyway. You are not the one responsible for deciding whether or not this song is going to get cut by this artist. So I don't care what you think. So many of you, and I get it, I understand it. It's the society that we live in. And again, going back to what I said earlier, it has to do with being a creative because these are our children, right? These songs, our careers, our products, the thing that we bleed for and that we have the blood, the sweat, the tears go into everything that we're trying to create. I get it. We hold them so they are little pieces of us. So when someone reacts negatively to it, we take it personal because they're, as far as we're concerned, they are reacting to us. But what I want you to seriously think about, every time you go take a CD and you drop it off at one of these publishing companies, you drop it off at this record label, you're taking it to this A&R, what they have no more say-so in what's going to go on that record than you do. Their job is to be a filter. Their job is to keep you away from the people who actually make the decisions. They are a gatekeeper, period. They are not a gateway. They are a gatekeeper. Their job is to keep you and what you have away from the people who make the decisions. Now, there are many different reasons that is, and the main reason is because I've said it many times, the labels have closed themselves off. The publishing companies have closed themselves off. The record labels have sister companies from a writing perspective. If you're a songwriter and you're listening, listen to this. They're not cutting outside songs, so they don't give a fuck about your song. They don't want to hear your song. They don't give 2 shits about you as a songwriter. They don't care how great your song is because they will cut a substandard piece of shit song that was written by their sister company's publishing company because the record label owns the publishing on that song before they will cut a great song that you wrote. That's the way that it is. That is the music business. So you can try your best to embed yourself in those camps, which you're not going to do. They are gatekeepers. Their whole job is to be negative and to discourage you and to tell you no. I was listening the other day. My buddy Joe West also has a podcast called From the West Barn. And Joe's been on my podcast before. We had a great conversation. If you haven't listened to that episode, you should really go back and listen to that episode with Joe West. But on his podcast the other day, he had who I consider to be one of the greatest country songwriters of all time, and that's Jeffrey Steele. He had Jeffrey on his podcast. And there, I don't even know, 20, 25, 30 number one hits that Jeffrey's had for artists, multiple genres, but, you know, tons for Rascal Flatts and Tim McGraw, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. One of the most prolific songwriters of the last 20 years in Nashville, by far. He was talking about the story of What Hurts the Most, which we can all pretty much agree that What Hurts the Most is one of the greatest and most popular country songs of definitely the last 20 years for sure. It broke every boundary that existed in country music. It crossed over, became a pop hit as well. It skyrocketed Rascal Flatts to the next level. There's no doubt that What Hurts the Most is one of the greatest songs ever written. In the podcast, Jeffrey tells the story to Joe about how he actually wrote What Hurts the Most 8 years before Rascal Flatts cut it. Faith Hill cut it and didn't put it out. Mark Wills cut it. He didn't put it out. He wrote the song 8 years before Rascal Flatts cut it. He had pitched that song all over town and was told no. The song wasn't good enough. It's sad. It's depressing. It's a 4-minute ballad. Radio will never play it. Nobody's going to cut this song. And everybody turned him down. He said, meanwhile, though, he's playing around town at bars and things like that, and people are going freaking nuts when he plays this song. And he's trying to relate that information that, hey, real people, not you sitting behind that desk thinking that you have some sort of control over the process and thinking that you know what great songs really are and what great songs really aren't. Not you. We're talking about real fucking people here. Real people on the ground. You know, the people that buy the music, the people that stream the music, the people that share the music, you know, the people that actually fucking matter. He said they're going nuts over it. No, nobody will get behind this song. Nobody's going to like this song. What I'm trying to explain to you is that is one story. That is also true and representative of 25 million other stories in this town. But yet you as a songwriter, you as an artist think that what these people have to say is the gospel truth. When, like I said, the truth of the matter is they are wrong. Again, if they were an NFL quarterback, they would have 1,000 interceptions to every one completion. They get it right 1 out of 1,000 times. And yet we all somehow put these people up on this pedestal as if they know more about the business, more about what people want than we do. The real reason this is because all of these labels and publishing companies and everybody else have insulated themselves. So everything is coming from within. Everything is coming from inside. So it's easy to tell you, the outside songwriter, the outside artist, that your music isn't good enough, that it's not right for any of their artists. It's not right for their artist because the song's not right. It's not right because you don't write or their affiliated publishing company. So please think about this. I have you guys all the time send me emails and DMs and send me links to your music and say, Steve, will you mind telling us what you think about your music? I want to be real honest with you and tell you, what fucking difference does it make what I think about your music? I'm not going to buy it. I'm just not. I might like it. I might love it. I might think it's great. But at the end of the day, what difference does it make what I think about your music? I'm not your customer. I'm not the consumer. That is the most amazing and powerful thing about where we are in the music industry right now, is that you don't need the Missy Gallimores and you don't need the A&R reps and these 22-year-old fucking dipshits from Belmont being the gatekeeper between you and getting your music where it needs to be to get heard and get discovered. You don't need any of these people. You need your phone. You need your computer. You need a willingness to sacrifice, the persistence, the consistency, the things we've talked about many times. You do not need that person's approval because you're never going to get it. Until you're on the inside, that's when you'll get it. Like I said earlier, how many people they want to talk about how well they know the business. And we knew this song was going to be a hit, and we've talked about this in the past. None of those songs were ever written to be hits. A hit becomes a hit when a record label puts $1 million behind it and pays off radio consultants and radio program directors and flies them and their families for cruises and weekend getaways and to get them to play the record more. That's how a hit becomes a hit. Sure, you can listen to something and think, man, it's a great song. Why do you also think that there's so many stories coming out now? You used to never hear about this. But within the last 4 or 5 years, it's almost weekly somebody's getting sued. Tim McGraw, Faith Hill, Ed Sheeran, go name them. Everybody's getting sued for stealing songs. And all of that, when you dig into these cases, what you'll find is that oftentimes an unknown outside songwriter had pitched a song to one of these fucking gatekeepers, and they had taken that song and gone, well, we told them it wasn't right for the artist, but this is actually a really good song. Let's give it to a couple of our inside the family affiliated songwriters at our publishing company and get them to rework this a little bit. It happens time after time after time after time. And then so many people, when they realize that this has happened to them, you are still afraid to do anything about it because you're afraid of getting blackballed. So it's this constant circle of, again, like we talked about the other day, of allowing yourself to get screwed, enabling yourself, putting you and your artwork and your creativity in a position and in somebody's hands that doesn't want it. Now, they may want to take it and they may want to use it and figure out if it really is something they like and it's something that they don't want you to get credit for it. They don't want to elevate you. They want to elevate themselves. I think that is one of the biggest tragedies, misconceptions, and cover-up jobs that has ever been about Nashville. You watch this shit on TV about how Nashville is welcoming. Oh, we're a creative community. Oh, it's all about the song. Nothing in this fucking town's about the song. If it were about great songs, you'd be able to turn your radio on and hear great songs instead of hearing one every once in a while. This town is built on know and self-preservation, and one serves the other. There's no safety, no guarantee of loss of anything in no. Actually, there is a lot of safety in no. There is no safety in saying yes. So when somebody takes a chance on you, takes a chance on your song, they are putting themselves on the chopping block. I know that you want people to tell you that you're great. I know you want people to listen to your songs and love your songs. But I want to make sure that you understand one thing and that you listen to this very clearly. Just because you take your songs or you as an artist and you've been pitching yourself around town or you've been pitching these songs around town, when they say no, it is not a direct reflection on your songs. It is not a reflection on you as who you are as an artist and whether or not you have what it takes to make it. They are pre-programmed to say no. They can't even promote and make successful 80% of the artists they have on their label already. That's just fact. I've been noticing over the last week and a half, all these publishing companies signing all of these new writers because they're getting them cheap. They're paying them nothing. And these writers think, oh, well, now I get that badge of honor. I get to say I have a publishing deal. Yeah, you'll never have a fucking cut. Yeah, you'll have some independent cuts and do some shit like that, but you're signing to publishing companies who have absolutely no political capital in this town whatsoever. Because most of these small independent publishing companies are propped up by owners who are just feeding their own ego. They wanted to be songwriters. They wanted to be producers. They wanted to be artists, and they didn't have what it took to make it. So they're going to start a publishing company because they made a bunch of money over here in this other business, and they're just going to waste money and waste money and waste money so that they can play the game. It is more important to most people in this business to appear to play the game and be relevant than it is to actually be successful. I've said it 100 times, and this is a perfect time to say it yet once again. Most people in this business will take the perception of fame over the reality of success 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10. Because what we do revolves around perception. You look at these writers and when they're posting on Facebook, oh, we had a hit with so-and-so. Yeah, they made 12 grand. I mean, is that your idea of being being successful, 12 grand? It's not. Where you're sitting right now, $12,000 might sound like a lot of money. It's fucking not. Okay? It's not. $12,000 won't get you to having a better quality of life any more than $500 will. It's all about the perception. Because perception, get this, listen to this very carefully. You can quote me on this. Perception is 1,000 times easier to monetize than actual success. If you are successful but don't look like you're having success, nobody gives a shit. You could be totally failing and looking like you're succeeding, and everybody will flock to you. Because the perception is an actual equity value in this business. I'm getting a little off the tracks here. The underlying point of what I wanted to talk about today was to implore you to please not give so much credit to these A&R executives and these creative directors at publishing companies. If they tell you that I don't like this song, that's their fucking opinion. And guess what? Opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. There's just more of them in the music business. Don't put so much weight behind the opinion of what other people have. Because again, going back to the beginning, if we went on the average of how many times they were right versus how many times they were wrong, they wouldn't have a job. The only reason they do is because they say no 100 times more than they say yes. It's almost like that scenario where you can't blame somebody for losing a race they never ran. Plus, you also have to understand that most of the people that are in those positions are failed songwriters and artists themselves. Most of them are. They wanted to be a songwriter but couldn't hack it, so they're now a creative director at a publishing company. Look, that's cruel to say, but it's the truth. So it's the same thing with radio people. Find me a fucking radio disc jockey that wasn't in a band. I'll wait. Because that's what they wanted to do, but they couldn't hack it. They didn't get their shot. It didn't go off, so they do the next best thing to be a local celebrity in their hometown. I've been there. I know some of the things that I'm saying today are harsh and it's going to piss off a lot of people, but if you've learned one thing about me, I don't give a shit. I will tell you the way things are. You can not like the way that I've said them or that I've positioned them, but it doesn't make them any less true. Stop putting so much value behind these people's opinion who doesn't even matter to begin with. Because I can tell you, any songwriter or artist listening to this podcast right now, the people that you're sending your music to, that you're pitching your music to, or you're sending your demo to, or your record as an artist to try to get signed, the person that you're sending it to has absolutely no decision-making ability whatsoever. None. They're going to take that. If they don't throw it immediately in the trash, they're going to send it to the next person on the totem pole who still doesn't make any decisions. And then it goes from there to somebody else who still doesn't make any decisions whatsoever. And then when it does, if it ever did finally make it To the person that can actually make the decision, they've got 5 close friends that they went to school with, that they hang out every weekend, that they're going to make their artists cut their songs before they ever consider yours. That is the truth and the reality of where the business is right now. Nashville has never led the way in anything. Nashville is a follower. When something takes off, they go try to find 5 things just like it. That's where the people at the top, that's their mindset. Nobody's taking a chance. Nobody's going out on a limb. They wait and watch other things pop up and be successful, and then they will go find something just like it that is already within their stable. So stop giving so much credence, stop putting so much value into what these people have to say about you and what they have to say about your songs. The amazing thing about where we are with technology right now as it sits is you have the ability to bypass the gatekeepers. You have the ability to take your music straight to the only person that matters in the entire process. That is the end user, the person that's going to stream it, the person that's going to buy it. Yes, of course, it puts more responsibility on your shoulders as having to be the one that pays for the marketing, pays for the promotion, does your own social media. Yes, but if you aren't willing to put that amount of work in anyway, then fuck you, get out of the business. If you're one of these people, if you're one of these, call me when I'm famous, I need a manager to do it, I need a booking agent to do it, I need a record label to do it, you need all these other people to do it because you're that fucking special. We don't need you in this business. We've got plenty of ego here already. Our cup runneth over with ego. We don't need you. We don't want you. What we want and what we need are artists that believe in themselves enough to put the hard work in, to do the heavy lifting, to be willing to deal with the blood, the sweat, the tears that comes along with the persistence, consistency, and sacrifice that it takes to be successful in this business. The people that don't care what so-and-so at this record label thinks about their song or thinks about them as an artist or what this creative director over here at this publishing company said about their songs, they're not good enough. Guess what? 99.999% of the songs sitting in that fucking publishing company's drawer aren't good enough either. It's kind of like one of those things about why people love garage sales. And it's like I've never understood why you would go buy somebody else's shit they want to get rid of. It's shit to them. But what do they say? One man's trash is another man's treasure. All these publishing companies up and down Music Row, all their drawers are filled with trash. But it's their trash, so it's their treasure. That's the way I want you to look at it. Again, before we get out of here, stop giving so much value on what other people think about you and what other people think about your music. The only people that should matter are the people that are going to consume it. And guess what? There are a lot of people that are not going to like what you do. But one thing I can promise you is there are more people that will than won't. I don't like a lot of things. I don't like a lot of music. There's some things that just aren't my thing. They're just not my style. It doesn't mean that I don't appreciate the process, that I don't think whoever produced it was great or whoever wrote it was great. It's just not my thing. But guess what? There are far more people that are not like me. There are more people that will like it than won't. So stop letting the opinions of people that can't make a decision anyway influence you and get you down, get you depressed, get you rethinking of your life and your career and what you're doing. Believe in yourself and make your music, make your art, make your products, make your posts on social media for the people that do matter and forget everyone else. I know you're probably thinking that, well, Steve, that's easier said than done. And it is. It's a process. You have to be willing to walk away. You have to be willing to have a completely different mindset. Don't let someone else determine your outcome. Do not place your success or failure in someone else's hands. At the end of the day, I can promise you, you will be far happier and feel like you accomplished far more if that's in your hands. Don't, at the end of the day, look in the mirror and go, it's that guy's fault. that I didn't make it. Because I can tell you that's what it's going to come down to. It won't matter about any stupid A&R rep or creative director at a publishing company. If you don't make it to where you want to be, the only person you're going to have to blame is in the mirror. And I promise you, if you take that philosophy, you will drive yourself harder than anybody else. You are your biggest fan. There is nobody on the face of the planet that's more passionate about you than you. Use that passion, use that fuel. Persistence, consistency, and a willingness to sacrifice. Forget everybody else's opinion because it just simply doesn't matter. Guys, thank you for joining me for another episode of today of the Steve Freeman Podcast. Again, like I said, topics like this, they really tend to get under my skin because we give so much credit to the fucking industry, and the industry is bullshit. I'm just going to tell you, it is complete and utter bullshit. It doesn't matter what they think. Guys, don't forget to rate and review the podcast, subscribe to it so that it automatically downloads to whatever app that you listen on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, any of those wonderful places. Leave us a written review, though. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, rate us those 5 stars. Follow me on social media at @TheSteveFreeman on all social media platforms, and join my inner circle at TheSteveFreeman.com. As always, the podcast brought to you by ArtistDevelopmentAcademy.com. Guys, until next time, keep being creative, keep pressing the boundaries, and there's nothing wrong with being independent. See you in the next episode.
Thanks for joining us for the Steve Freeman Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow Steve on social media at @TheSteveFreeman.